and rock and roll. Give us a little music to bring us in here. I was gonna try to make up words for this week. On the old in the way, talking about motorcycles on Sunday. Old. Take it, Scott.
I got nothing for you, dude.
And now the bridge. Welcome to episode 11. I'm not buying floor mats, which is going to be dealership centric. If you haven't picked that up already, very happy to see everybody today. It's been a couple weeks since we sat down and chatted, so I hope everybody's been well. Everybody looks good.
More than a couple, dude.
More than a couple, yeah, exactly. And on that note, a brief show note. Dakota, MWC Dakota, is not able to be here today because he's celebrating the graduation of his daughter, my niece, our family member, who's graduated from college. Woohoo! Woohoo!
Someone's vacuuming?
No, that was applause.
Oh,
Somebody should be vacuuming if any of my kids are listening or watching the show, but
I can guarantee you nobody's vacuuming.
yeah.
Congratulations to his daughter. What a cool life it is.
Is anybody a doctor here? There's no way there's a doctor here. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. It's been a few weeks, and Mike is at Sammy's graduation, so good for him, good for the fam. I did get to see Mike a couple weeks ago in person. And for those who don't know, our listeners, Mike lives in New York and I live in California, so we don't see each other a lot. But I was out there for a funeral, rented a bike, had an awesome ride, so it was good to see him. Congrats to him, and we'll talk to him again soon. How about the rest of you guys? How you been doing, Nooms? How's Santa training going?
Okay, I'm fresh out of Santa training. I can tell you three main things that I've learned.
Okay.
One is don't ever spoil the magic. Two is keep your ego in check. And what was number three? Oh, never make a promise to a child. This is what I learned.
Really?
Yeah, if the kid asks for like an AK-47, you say something like, I'm going to have to send my head elf out to visit with your parents, and they'll figure out what the best thing to do is.
Okay.
You never say no, and you never make a promise. And also, always have both hands visible in photos. That's
oh wow.
Yeah. And Santa training, as you can imagine, was brought to you by type 2 diabetes and knee braces. Because what an experience that was. A room full of guys in their overweight guys in their 60s. It was absolutely incredible. Another story for a different show. But thanks for asking. It was great. And the minute I got home, I trimmed my beard.
I see that.
Something respectable.
It looks.
I did it over my wife's sink, just as kind of a little
that's really. I always find it, like you said, for another show, but that's fascinating. Like how they landed on those rules. I mean, the one about keeping your hands visible is a little bit more practical, but
and once a girl reaches high school age, she does not sit on Santa's lap because there are too many people out there looking for a quick liability buck.
Yeah, I bet. No kidding. Jeez.
So that's what I learned. That was my day at camp.
Very cool, very cool. And Eddie, looks like you're out on the road. Where we don't know where you are. You are somewhere in upstate New York, we think.
A galaxy. It's not close.
Hey, well, you know what? Who cares, right? Because you got your bike. Everything looks like it's operational, and it doesn't really matter where you are. You just point it whatever direction you want to go.
10,000-mile service. I'm enjoying the new.
Did you have a good experience?
Everything.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Scott, about the experience and that 10,000-mile service, and that actually is going to be the topic of our show today. And I have an irrational and irreverent fascination with episode naming, and I'm not paying for floor mats was intended to be a subtle dig at getting taken for a ride. Because, geez, where would you? Well, I'm not going to explain the joke, but you get it. Before it's in, we've had a variety of experiences too that I'm really interested to hear what the spectrum of those are.
Interesting, because my trike is ready for the 10,000, actually 11,000. I forgot about the 10, so I'm closer to the 11. So
you're pushing it then.
I am anxiously waiting for an expression of experiences
experience
to share.
And you've been I know it's been a few weeks since we've talked, but you've been out riding, so your bike is you've been, racking up the miles and anything else interesting, any other trips or anything that you've done, any like really put extra wear and tear on it recently since the last time we talked? You put new wheels on it, right?
Who are you talking?
You, Carlos, you put new rims.
Oh,
Didn't you put new
me.
rims on your bike? Here he is.
Yes, I have chrome rims that they it seems these rims fell off the truck,
I see.
and it was a donation, a heartfelt donation that was received very generously,
Excellent.
and so yes, I took advantage of the fact that those wheels. You know, Jay, do you know what hog really literally is translated as?
No, what?
$100 or greater.
I know that HP was $100.
So when you think of that, 100 or greater. So
yeah.
when an opportunity presents itself that these $600-700 wheels a piece were being offered at a reasonable amount of $400 for the pair, I think it was sure there was some pitting on it, and sure there was some slight blemishes on it, but
all stuff you can live with.
All heavy duty metal polish can fix it there. So we're happy. They feel great, and yes, it's true. I am going to be following in Eddie's footsteps to bring in the Gray Ghost in for its maintenance. So I will offer my comments after she offers her experience of when she noticed it, when she made the first phone call, and at the time when you were doing this, which is interesting enough, you're talking about a person who was an employee who you would think has a little bit extra juice than Joe Schmo who walks in and says, I want a maintenance. So I think, Eddie, that's a good enough segue to say...
take it away. So, yeah, tell us what happened. 10,000 mile service.
I mean, it was like, it wasn't the, you know...
All right, take a breath. Take a breath.
Eddie,
she's looking around to see if...
Eddie, you went up to the service manager. You said...
There's somebody in a Harley overall behind that bush.
No, start from the beginning. How about that?
Yes.
Yeah, start from the beginning. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's time for the 10,000 miles. And I was, asking around to see if there's any way that I don't need to do it. Because I just did the 5,000 mile and I'm going to do the 20,000 in a minute. And so they were like, yeah, it's probably good because my back tire was pretty much bald.
And that was at 10K, so like
good, huh?
That was your original back tire that when you bought the bike, and you bought it new, right? Just so.
Yes, I did.
Okay, right, okay.
New. And so I knew that the oil would probably have to be changed. So just to know, I called the dealership ahead of time and I asked them so I have my 10,000 mile service coming up and I'm nervous. I'm gonna do a lot of riding this summer, so I just want to make sure it's fine, and I just need my back tire changed, and I have the tire and rim package and stuff. And then I was like, because they're always so nice normally when they check my tire pressure and stuff, they're so sweet, and sometimes I'll ask questions, and as you know, I was working as a Harley Angel from when was it? Last fall to very recently, and I stopped because I have a paddling team that I practice
Dragon
with,
boat racing.
Practicing with, yeah, and so
which is fun to say.
They knew that I was gonna finish in the summer and possibly come back in the fall, but I don't know. It was a fun experience while it lasted, but I asked them what to expect. They said it would cost $550, and then she said, if you want, they'll walk you through what's included in the service before. So I was like, that sounds really good. I need some hand holding. And it feels like a familiar place. I spend way too much time at that dealership. Anyway, it's right down it's on the street that I live on. And, that's been my touchstone to everything Harley,
Don't you know about everyone by sight? Eddie there? Like, don't
Yeah,
everybody? It's not like
I
there's any
do. I
strangers,
know
right?
everybody there. I've been hanging out there for about 2 years, like
Okay.
probably in my life. And so yeah, I left my bike at the shop and thinking that the tire and rim package is gonna cover a lot, and whatever they'll pay for the service for the oil change and whatever I guess the service for the tire and whatever, and then the final bill came out to 1,200.
Whoa!
And oh man, shit.
Yeah.
It just stung a little bit. I'm not experienced at this. Like before you come, when I first came to America and I found out that you have to pay 20% on top of everything you're already paying. That was already like, I would look at the bill and I'd be like, okay, that's all right. Then they'd be like, no, but you need to pay 20%. I was like, oh, okay. So in this case, I just wanted to know: am I supposed to tip? How much do I expect to pay at the end? It's $5.50, but that's before a tax. Like, how much is tax? Like, is it going to be 600, 700? Just so I can know.
Yeah, but
so
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Go ahead.
Yeah, so
it wouldn't be twice that. It wouldn't be double that. Like tax, like you said, 20%. But if I walked in there and thought it was going to be twice as much, I'd be
like,
pissed.
am I supposed to tip out of my own pocket on top of tax?
Babe, what's going on over there?
So I just thought that everything was fine. So I left the bike there, and then the service guys who I've known for such a long time, they're so nice. They started texting me like, "Here's the final bill or the work order or whatever. Do you want us to go ahead?" And I read it. It was like 1,200. What? I just saw the numbers. The words on the left to it didn't mean much,
right?
Because I'm a girl.
I don't think that's fair.
Like,
but I know you're just being.
I'll pick it up later.
So they hadn't done the work yet. They showed you what they thought it was going to cost, and you said, "Go ahead and do it."
But I said also, like, wait, what? I don't need a front tire. And he's like, I don't know. He sent me some measurements, and he's like, something like that's not going to go into the tire package. And I don't know. I was like, go ahead.
Yeah.
Thinking, I don't know, that they would adjust the price. That I don't know. Maybe I am naive. I don't know, because
that part might have been slightly naive.
At any point mentioned, like,
part,
Eddie, since we love you and everyone loves you and we want you to keep riding, like, whatever. I don't know what happened. I just I got a little flustered because I don't have a lot of experiences with cars in America or service of any kind.
Yeah, and there are a lot of unspoken nuances to culture of service for sure.
It does sound like you were treated slightly unfairly, though. I would, if that happened to anybody else on this panel, I would expect better.
In the afternoon, I got back and I was like, wait, this is the final bill? And they were like, yeah. And the service guy, who was actually like, Daniel, you can censor that when you... Whoa, live.
Yeah, sure. Beep! I do have a beeper here.
I don't know, somebody there just spoke... Thanks. I felt like I was being spoken to in a really condescending way. A lot of staff was around, and the way he mansplained it to me, and he's like, you should know that, you should know that. I was like, I don't know. And he's like, well, you know what? I sent you the work order on the text, and you said, and then I was like, can you take the front tire off? Maybe take a couple of them. And he's like, well, we're still gonna, pay for charge you for the service, and it just, I felt so. I started sweating and I blushed. I was just like, you know what, it's fine.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, I have to come back tomorrow. And so I came back. I actually called corporate to ask them for some advice because I hadn't been walked through like what to expect. I had been spoken to in a certain way. I'm just being honest here. Then before I went back to the dealership, I said, would it be possible to for the manager, the service manager, to walk me through this invoice? And he did, and he said, we'll just take this off because you work here. And he took I don't know, $100 off, and the final bill ended up being 1,100. And it's just, I need to start learning how to change my oil and changing my brake pads real fast.
Yeah, I mean, that's Well,
You know,
I
the
should.
gas doesn't cost a lot, but this was just it. I mean, I'm sweating just thinking about it.
Yeah.
It was not transparent. I don't feel like I was walked through it. I don't feel like I was treated respectfully, and it was a jarring experience. All in all, I honestly don't look forward to the next one, and I'm considering going back to Nassau Harley. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
they treated me like a complete stranger, and I felt a little bit humiliated there.
Mm.
Yeah, I
That's
wouldn't
all.
expect that. Not thinking that you're gonna have to get a price break, but I would, if you work somewhere, I would at least expect to get a
I didn't think
better
I'd have to.
treatment, right?
Yeah, I don't
Jay,
know.
Yeah.
Jay, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So,
I'm done.
so Eddie, in the U.S., there is a bit of a stereotype that women get treated poorly when it comes to maintenance type issues. We even have jokes about it, like, "Oh, they told me I needed new blinker fluid."
Yeah.
Just make up ridiculous things. That may be the case. It may not be the case. I don't think your experience sounds like it was a good one, regardless of your gender. I
Right.
wouldn't want to go in and say, I'm expecting this to be $500 and then walk out at, more than double that.
Right.
In other industries, you drop off your cat at the vet and they have a thing that says, if it's going to be more than this much money, call me.
Right.
That's the kind of thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's also like I get it. They added these things on that were obviously needed. Don't ask me what they are because I'm still like
Well,
reeling
that's
with a
the
number.
part that I
But
don't
like
think
I
is
just
right.
feel like
Yeah,
that
they may
the
not be
whole
needed.
like that there was no. I mean, the way that I was explained with anger.
Yeah.
It's so much money
Yeah,
for me. It's
yeah,
a month's rent, man.
Yeah.
that's wrong.
Eddie,
It's
can I ask a
wrong
quick
from
question? I don't know if you can see this on your phone, but for our viewers, I'm holding up this is a multi point inspection sheet, and it's what they gave
Wow, I've
me.
never seen one of those.
Yeah, this is what my dealership gave me before they did my 20K
Neat.
service, and they gave it to me like after they did the inspection. They came through and they said, and they provide, like, I have in there somewhere, it details everything that happens at like the 1K, the 5K, the 10K, all that. So it doesn't sound like you got anything that listed that out, or not something
Oh, I want one of
specifically.
those though.
Yeah. And it's
I
completely
want to learn how to do
reasonable.
it myself. Though.
Well, I want to talk. I think there's virtue, and I'm with you in wanting to learn to do things yourself. But there's an aspect of this service here, and I think it ties to the economics of how dealerships and lots of businesses work that I think is driving this. So I want to come back to that. But
Yeah.
Carlos, you've got a ton of experience. Before we talk about what how does your do you want to tell how does Eddie's
well,
experience differ from yours in
the
general?
problem the sad part about that dealership, and it's not any it's not a defense of it. It's an explanation of a rudeness, of a lack of customer service that has prevailed in that dealership, regardless of the change of ownership, and it hasn't been translated down to the staff. And back in the good old days, and I say back in the good old days, the only time that it was service and that dealership was ever at its great was when they had real service people who not only rode but were part of the chapter. So you had that combination of a guy that imagine here's a guy having breakfast with the chapter, and we had at one point the best that I think was the pinnacle of it is two brothers. One was two identical twins, two twins, and one guy was the parts manager, and one was the service manager, and they rode. They were serious riders. So imagine you're having breakfast with these guys, and you look at the guy and say, "Hey, what
Yeah.
the hell is this?" And the guy says, "Well, who worked on your bike?"
Right.
And they will take out the time. And it comes down to staff and management taking the time that it's not just an investment. That the fact that the way they talk to you, Eddie, is no excuse. It's no reason. The fact
Yep.
that you should have been given an explanation from the word, because we know that those people are under pressure.
Yeah.
We know that those guys are under there. They're thinking of moving. They're going to be going to a new location. They have too many motorcycles in the cramp. They don't have enough staff. They don't have enough people, and the turnaround is phenomenal in that, as it's typical of that place. I had my bad experience with my bike buying it, and I had to end up complaining to corporate, in which I got
Your
umpteen
trike?
calls. My trike, yeah,
Yeah.
because and it's a different service experience, but my attitude, and I don't want to digress from it. It just comes down to communication,
Yeah.
communication, and just treating with somebody. It's fine if they had broken it down to Eddie to say it's going to be, first of all, right off the bat, they're telling you what that mechanic, I forget, $150 an hour just to look at the frickin' bike, whatever it is.
Wow, that's crazy. I'm in the wrong business.
Yeah, no kidding,
Yeah,
right?
no, but that's the reality of a mechanic. The guy, he just changes something and he looks at it for 2 hours. That's $300 right off the bat without him doing anything.
Sometimes it's
Forget
called a
about
bench
that.
fee. Sometimes it's
And,
like the,
and
the
that's
flat
why,
service fee.
Yeah.
and it's sad because if they originally quoted you $500 for the sake of argument, it's again they should have said, well, Eddie, that means that's going to be 2 hours of this guy working us. That's $300 right then and there.
Yeah.
So the other $200, what's that based on? The oil, the filter, a little bit of oil, and changing it. They should have. They can charge you anything they want as long as they go in step by step breaking it down. And
Carlos,
that's what.
Sure.
Right.
Sorry,
Okay.
go. I'm sorry. I had to ask because for you guys are both in New York. Scott, you're in Colorado. I'm in California. But when I was in Connecticut, and Scott, you might remember this. If you walk into a garage in Connecticut, any kind of mechanical garage, they have to have the hourly rate posted and broken down, like somewhere visible, like it's in your face.
Yes.
It has to be. It's like it's very visible, like almost annoyingly visible. You walk in, it's going to be right there that you have to. And I don't see that in California at all. I don't know how it is in New York or not.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like that out here, but it is completely reasonable. In the future, we can't go back in time, Eddie.
Yeah.
It's completely reasonable to say, hey, I've got okay, I'm planning for about 500. If it's going to be more than that, call me, and I'm going to need you to explain to me.
Right.
No, but seriously, and this is not a joke. You say, I need to know what's absolutely critical because I'm not going to ride out of here on an unsafe bike, and I know that you morally and ethically can't let me ride out of here on a death trap.
Yeah.
I need to understand what's critical now and what we may be able to do later as longer term service, or maybe we'll do it at the 20,000. Sometimes, I cannot. I cannot say this is what.
Tire, all that business, that the front tire probably cost me so many hundreds of dollars. I never asked for it.
Yeah, and that's where I think is the
changed. And then the way that they spoke to me and telling me like, oh, so now you want it off? Do you know that it's gonna cost like this much in like service to just pick it off?
Do you know that I didn't ask?
Yeah.
Like also,
let me ask you. Let me ask. Yeah, Eddie Eddie, did you deal with Phil?
I spoke to Phil at the end, the service manager. Once I realized that was the real bill, and I was there, and I was like, "You guys, really?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Can I talk to the manager?"
Well, I think. Go up, Carlos. I'm sorry. Finish your thought. You.
No. What happened? Phil is transplanted from Miracle Mile Harley Davidson. Now, Phil's got an interesting, and I don't mean to. This is just to add to what I was saying about the turnaround and the flip flop. Phil originally started at Harley Davidson in Long Island City, way back when, and he was an assistant service guy. Yada yada yada.
Okay.
He got an excellent offer. As I said, I facetiously say he got a quarter more at Miracle Mile Harley Davidson, which is a few miles away, Nassau County. Better environment, yada yada yada. Got kicked up the management level. Now he's head kahuna over there, and guess what? Then he stays there for a while, and they get bought out, and he lost his job, and he ended up going back to Long Island City.
Okay.
To deal with over there. Now, in my dealings with him, I've dealt with him at New York City. I dealt with him in Miracle Mile. He was always under pressure. He was always a guy that meant to say, I'll take care of it. But the phone is ringing. There's two other people in his office. The guy's knocking on his door.
Yeah.
That's an explanation, but not an excuse to say it doesn't matter. And and it's that sense of communication or stick to us. And the reason I'm putting that back to communication is we as individuals have, as Eddie did the right thing. When she couldn't get local support at the grassroots level, she went to corporate, which is nobody wants corporate to start calling because that affects inventory, that affects,
then they also have asked me if I wanted to make an official complaint, and once I said no, because that's my colleagues. I wouldn't want to. So that's when they basically stopped listening to me. And I was like, what's the whole point?
Yeah, and that's
either someone's gonna lose their job, or I'm gonna have to pay.
But again, Eddie, at the bottom line,
I'm not here to.
You're the one, Eddie. You have to realize, like anything else, you paid for that bike. Nobody else paid for it.
No.
You throw your leg over that bike. It's your safety, and at the end of the day, it's not, you crack that throttle and you're the one going in there. So it's what you need to be done. And regardless, friends and all that other bullshit, goes out the door when you have to realize, hey, at the end of the day, because what if, we're not going to check it out. If that wheel is not tightened up to torque, if nothing is checked, then you're there riding along, wobble, wobble. You have It's not that you want to get anybody, not that you want to get into trouble because there's such a turnaround on there. But the reality is management has to understand. And that's where I filed my complaint with management, and the guy who was the general manager got fired.
Oh, wow.
Because in my case, I didn't, you don't sell a motorcycle and put it on the floor, and then you get a customer who's willing to buy it, and you find out that the motorcycle is not fixed, hasn't been repaired, and it just rolled out, and now all of a sudden they say, "Oh, we got to take a look at it." So me, don't mess with me.
Unacceptable, yeah.
I've been there longer than there, and I filed a complaint like this, and I think after I hit the send button, I was getting calls from the branch, from the chapter, from my own hog officers.
Wow.
And I was there saying, "You know who you're talking to?" I said, "I've been here before. You're messing with the wrong guy." I said, "You put yourself in my position." And, and at the end of the day, they said that the general manager had an early retirement.
Yeah.
And in which case a new ownership
spend more time with family.
Wow, early retirement.
Yeah, so having said that, let's go back. What are our options? We, as Harley people in New York City, can go. These are the things. We only have Harley Davidson of Long Island City, Harley Davidson of Staten Island. So you don't want to cross another bridge and pay extra tolls and everything just to get there. You got Bergen County Harley Davidson, New Jersey. You got to cross a bridge.
And New York City, like any big city, sorry to interrupt you, Carlos, it's a pain in the ass to go anywhere. So
I'm giving us, these are our only options. So you got to go to Staten Island, go to Long Island City, go to New Jersey, over the cross right there. You go to New Rochelle, okay, which is another close operation.
Well, before we get, if I can interrupt you, Carlos, before we get into talking about going to other dealerships first and options, I want to go back a step because I think you may rethink where to go if we diagnose what the root cause is differently. And just because for my own edification, my dealership experience, I go to Coronado Beach Harley Davidson here in San Diego.
Jay, how far away is that? That's number one, because we're talking about convenience.
Yeah, we're talking about, it's the closest dealership to my house. It's probably 15, 20 minutes.
Right. What's the price of convenience? What's the price of okay? Eddie is very close, so why not? So she's enjoying, or would have enjoyed, a repair place that's within walking distance.
Yeah.
Drop off the bike. And
huge benefit, right? Yeah.
A huge benefit versus driving to it, leaving the bike, but now you got to ask somebody to give you a hand, drive you there, drop it off.
Well, I have a theory. I have a theory that Eddie's experience and many others like it is the root cause of it is how dealerships make money, and the way dealerships and lots of businesses make money, especially in a franchise model, is by selling things that are that are extraneous to the initial product, right? The motorcycle in this case.
We're not saying they did that. We're speaking in
very general, right? So the way that would play out in this case is, you bought the motorcycle, you paid for a package or whatever, some warranty, some service, So that's sunken revenue. That's already gone. So every time you show up at the dealership, and this is really important, when you show up there for that 10K service, they're not making any money off of you. They're losing money immediately by having you there because you already paid for this sunk cost. You already paid for this revenue product. We'll say you're paying for the labor, right? So you're going to pay for somebody's time to be there. They're going to get a little piece of that, but they want to upsell you on other things because that's where they stand to make money, both the dealership and the individual servicing you. So where I'm connecting this, and I won't go prattle on and on, is those guys who work in at the service area are probably being incented to sell tires and brake pads and all this stuff that they can say, based on some AMA study that was done in 2015, that if your tires are below point 0.9, they should recommend you new tires, even though everybody knows you can go to 0.5 before you need to buy them, or whatever. I'm making this up. So that's where they can kind of morally say we're telling you should buy all these things because for safety reasons, for everything we talked about, you got to throw your leg over this bike. But in reality, they're squeezing you for something you probably don't need at that time in order to generate revenue, additional revenue, and they're probably incented to do that, which is why they're putting that incentive of I've got to sell so many tires to people who come in for oil changes every month, that they're prioritizing that over the customer experience, which is not getting rooked like you did. So when I have that kind of experience,
it can also be more underhanded.
It could be, yeah. I'm probably giving them
absolutely not saying
right
that it happened at this location. I'm saying in general, you can have instances where the general manager walks by the normal staff and says, "Boy, if we don't get the revenue up, I might have to cut back everyone's hours." And then he walks away, and then everyone starts thinking,
what can I sell?
I want my hours cut. I'm not saying that happened, but that's a sneakier, dirtier way to try to incent, without a direct incentive.
Yeah.
Do it. Eddie, there is. Let's just make sure that it's been said that there was one thing that you are at fault for, and in this situation, and that was saying okay.
Right.
That's I realized that was.
That's the only thing that I say you're at fault for.
Everything that they wanted to do at that point.
Yeah, and if we were to make this a Law and Order episode, and this is what I would do for you to go back, is to say, I agreed to this service under duress, and that is not knowing, what to do with what's the right thing to do. And the only I wanted to make the point about so my theory is that this kind of a service experience, and whether it's a Harley dealership or a car dealership or anywhere you go and buy stuff where you have an ongoing relationship with the vendor where you go back for service, they're always trying to upsell you on everything. And it's I walk into a place and I can tell immediately what is their customer service sort of experience model, if there is one. And if people are trying to sell me on stuff constantly, I know that the only thing on this person's mind I'm talking about is whether or not I buy an extended warranty. So
exactly.
And they don't care about otherwise what it's going to be. But I do think also there's the one other quick thing. There's also an interesting cross section between motorcycle culture, which is unpolished, rough. It is abrasive by its nature, and misogynistic to a big degree. And I think there's a feeling that I'm sure that the culture in many Harley dealerships, and I'm not saying this is New York or any, is that people get away with more than they should. And I have two dings on my dealership that for feedback that in terms of experience. I had a very similar experience when I bought my bike, Eddie, in that I bought a extended warranty on a bike with 15,000 miles, and I bought a theft package. And by the time I was just wanted to leave, and by the time I just wanted my new bike and I wanted to go, and by the time I got to, okay, we got to sit back down and go through the paperwork with you again, they had built those things in, and I would have had to embarrassingly be like, I don't want that, and go through all this thing for them to unwind it. And the hour that they just spent doing the paperwork that you got to sit there and wait, they would have had to and I felt like I was pressured, and it's on me because my pride and my male ego said,
I mean, I didn't even have a male ego, but I also felt super awkward because they were pretending to be all hurried and bothered by the whole situation.
Yeah,
and
I felt pressured into buying something that I didn't need to buy.
Annoyed by my lack of.
Eddie, did you, when they went over the bill, let me ask you something. As they started talking to you, was it the actual service people, or was just the sales people?
When I
it was
actually
Phil.
to go through the charges. It was Phil that I spoke
It
to.
was Phil. Now, did you have to initial any parts of any part of an agreement of the estimated bill saying, "Here, I'm going to charge you this. I'm going to charge you this. Is what it looks like." And did they not ask you to initial? You see, you saw this. I explained this to you, or it was so quick and so fast, and they assumed that you had all this assumption under your belt. That's why you didn't have to initial or identify any parts of the invoice.
I feel I had access to the invoice the whole time.
Okay.
I said okay without really being. I mean, everything happened in a day while I was at work.
I think there's something to be said too for Eddie, and I'm defending you, and you're not asking to be defended, but you know, if there's a service experience where I said this earlier, if something's going to be $500, and Newman, you alluded to this too, like with the call me if it's going to be more than that. There's something called common sense in their service. Like I've been in the service industry my whole life, and if I told somebody, if I quoted a client a $500 quote, and I knew it was going to be 1,000, I would package that. I'd have an explanation. I'd be like, "Listen, here's what's up. Here's what's going." I would put that down. I'd deliver that pill with some honey. You know, like here's what's up. Here.
Like
I wouldn't just be like, "So, do you want to pay this or what?"
Of everyone I was involved with,
right?
Made me feel like, you know what? I just want my bike out. I don't want to seem like I'm cheap.
Right.
Or stingy, and I know these people, and I don't want to have the reputation like, oh, she's poor, she can't.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Thank you for taking the $100 off because I work here. I really expected you to remember me since I've been.
Yeah,
like you know who I am, like it's Eddie, and but the whole time, from the first service moment to the last, it was I was dealing with people I had never met in my life.
Yeah.
And Eddie, I've only known you from our show here. You seem like an extremely kind person. In course terms, you're not a bitch, and if you're anything like me, I'm non-confrontational.
Right.
I don't have a motorcycle, but when the HVAC person comes and tells me,
I don't want any problems.
Yeah, you need your washers lubricated. And I'm like, what?
Really? Okay.
Sometimes
okay, would you like some coffee too?
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, well, maybe.
I was literally asking them if they wanted me to bring coffee from Dunkin' Donuts because nobody bothered to get coffee or tell me that the coffee machine worked. It was such a passive-aggressive exchange. Like, the more I think about it, the more annoyed I am. But
well, I think Harley knows that, and I think it's probably a safe bet to say that I think Harley knows, and you guys would have to tell me where you are. There's four Harley dealerships in San Diego County. They all seem to do a pretty brisk business.
It's a luxury brand too.
Yeah, and they don't seem like they don't want for customers. You know, there's.
Yeah.
They're always packed. Like they don't want for customers.
Lexus, but I drive the cheapest Lexus there. I feel like an ant when I'm at the service. Like everybody else is bringing bottles of wine to the service manager. I'm like, is my car done yet?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I've had really good experiences other than feeling like I got suckered into a warranty. As I've mentioned, I'm a customer service operations guy in my day job. So whenever I go somewhere, I am way overly focused on what people are doing and how they're doing it because I'm interested in those things. And when I bought my bike, there was a guy marching around the dealership swearing at somebody on a cell phone. And he was walking around, and I kept hearing him. This is important. I kept hearing him saying, like, well, when can you get the check? And it sounded like he was shaking somebody down for money. And I thought for a split second, I was already committed to buying my bike. And I can genuinely say there was a moment where I thought, like, geez, is this some dude who committed to buying something, who can't buy it now, who's being shaken down by a salesperson here? Like, I don't want to buy from a place like that. Like, the fact that he was even out on the floor,
that's true,
talking like that to me, like, I give you a little bit of, like a little bit of latitude because it's a Harley dealership, so it's a little rough around the edges. Maybe people are swearing and stuff like that. But if I was an owner or a manager or a service person and I saw somebody having a phone call like that, I would bounce them off a fucking wall. Yep. Behind the scenes. But you know, so I listened to this guy. What I later was able to deduce was that he was probably talking to his kid, because I later heard him, you know, complaining about his kid being a pain in the ass, and I put the two things together. This guy is the manager of the dealership or some serviceman or something very senior. And it just dawned on me, and I was like, he's a nice guy. He's been very great to me, and I'm not disparaging, but what I know, if I'm being objective, is like that's the example you set for everybody in that dealership, that it's okay to march around and swear at people on the phone in front of customers. And that transcends to everything, which means it's okay to tell Eddie to go, pound sand when she complains about her bill, because that's people learn from the top down.
It's again, the difference between these dealerships is when the ownership, it's more than just an investment. When their life when the life when the lifestyle is part of their lifestyle, and it's not just because here is, as we said, buying a motorcycle, whether it's used or Harley like that, it's disposable income. It's not something you got to eat first. You got to be in a place to live, and after everything else, and maybe wear clothing, that's optional. But after that, then everything else, buying that two-wheeled or three-wheeled device. And I found I had the opportunity. Yeah, I had the opportunity when Harley officers, when we were part of the chapter, the officers, primary officers, the director, the assistant director, and maybe the treasurer, and maybe a couple of guys, would be sent what they call primary officers training.
Carlos, this is Harley Owners Group, just to clarify?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Harley Owners Group. What I found was really eye-opening, and my mouth was dropping. So here you are sitting with people from across the country. So here you are, you got your New York crew around you. You're like, yeah, yeah, we're from Brooklyn. Yeah, we're crazy.
Forget about it.
To somebody,
I'm walking here.
The cornfields of Idaho, or Kansas.
Yeah.
And they're like, and when they start telling you, oh, you're sitting opposite an owner operator of a dealership, it's like, wow, you're sitting with us.
Yeah.
We're like the low. And then they said, why, yes, you people are our number one customer. Holy crap! What? Let me hear that. Say that again.
Yeah, right.
The guys start saying that they realize that you are a customer base, however big your chapter is, that you are, let's take care of you guys because we should take care of you guys, because you. And when they started, my mouth really was drooling when it says, and I said like this, and give them a lounge and free coffee. And they're like, yeah, we give them free coffee and bagels every Saturday. What? And they're like, yes, and we give you extra 10% discount and discount. And
they had Carlos at discount.
Yeah, right. I know, seriously.
So when you listen to that, say, why can't that mindset of communication?
Well, do you have a lounge at your dealership now? Do you have what do you have for what's your setup like there?
And a set, you see, when you go to the service department, there's chairs, there's a sofa there and everything, but it's on the way to looking at your bike through the window.
Okay.
And so you talk to the guys over there. Is it a lounge? Yeah, you could call it a lounge. Is it dedicated to just Harley Owners Group? No, not really.
Right.
It's for the public.
Right.
And when we have our meetings, it's they keep the place open for an hour after that, after everybody else has gone home. So we allow it, but it's nothing like where I've gone to other places. This weekend I was tooling around. I went upstate, and I'm there in Orange County, and one of these things, and the guy thought I was a Hog member, and he says, "Oh yeah, we just got fresh coffee in the back." What? I go in the back, and they have all these free magazines, and there was candy, and there was. I was like, oh man, I didn't even have my chapter.
We ain't got shit.
I was like, and they were polite to me. Said, are you okay? Is everything? Yeah.
Get a tissue, please.
Get away from me. Yeah.
Carlos was thinking about the cargo pants he was going to wear next time.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's.
I took like 4 magazines. I took 4 magazines, 3 magnets, and.
Exactly. I got 6 can openers, and I don't even need them.
I don't have any kids.
We could relitigate this all day
anyway,
long, and all we're going to end up doing is putting Eddie in a worse mood.
No, look, no.
I'm over it.
I think as long as you are, I think as long as you.
It's done a little bit, but whatever.
The one resolution I might offer, and by the way, when I told you I'm non-confrontational. I would not say like, well, you need to find a guy to call. No, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because my wife is the most badass woman I've ever met, and when I have a problem, I put her on the phone with the people, and I'm in the background going like, yeah, put him in the back.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? To tell you the truth, I did have a guy call.
Oh, okay. Well,
I
and
had
that's
a
you
guy
know, it's
ask
what
the
I'm
general
not here to
manager
tell
to call
you
him
how to
back.
feel. I just know that there are women that
Yeah.
get mistreated, but I don't think it would be unreasonable to call back your corporate person and say, look, I didn't ask for a new front tire. I understand you've already put it on the bike and now you can't call it new. Is there something you could do? Maybe sell it to me at cost and I'll eat part of it because I'm partially responsible, but I really feel mistreated here. Or maybe just ask for an apology from the service manager so they know this is bullshit. And then all of your other friends and other people who might hear this will say, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I do feel
You
comfortable
know,
going there. They knew they were wrong.
Well, the reality
You
is
know,
that we're talking about this now, right? And not that it's our intent to besmirch anybody's dealership or business, but people. This is how
Pretty good job,
people.
though.
This is how people share information, and you have to.
Yeah.
If you're in a business, you have to say, is the $50 or whatever I'm going to get from this tire worth the relationship I'm going to torch by not
Yeah.
fixing this?
Yeah.
You know what? And let me add to that because, like what Scott was saying, we all know that social media is a great avenue to throw rocks
Right.
behind us the safe keyboard.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's tougher to get in your face to someone and say, "Listen,"
Net
you know,
banging. Yeah.
and it's tough. And and again, going to the New York City Harley Owners Group over the years, there are many guys who will either start off slowly by saying, I talked to fill in the blank and he didn't get back to me. And I'm hoping, and then somebody will chime in, well, you talked to Joe Schmo or this guy. And then you see it escalate and
Right.
finally becomes a full blown social media,
Yeah.
saying,
A
I
shitstorm.
hate like this. And usually what happens then whoever the officers are at that time, then you can see there's this, come on guys, we have to be the problem that like a chapter, for example, is has to be sponsored by a dealership.
Yeah.
So the chapter says, I want to be part of the dealership, but at the same time they should treat me fairly. So there comes those behind the scenes, as Scott was
Right.
saying, negotiations where they say somebody in the management or the officers of the chapter that tries to go to somebody of the liaison, again, Eddie, that saying is it's the lesson. What do you walk away with what sort of a lesson, and
Yeah.
what are your options going forward? I'm saying in those specific cases where these guys were like ragging, the director or the assistant director said to the guy, let's go and talk to the guy.
Yeah.
And they make some sort of arrangement and they come to some sort of agreement to say, and that person may say, screw this, I'm not going to do it. What happens is that Eddie is, as I understand, I don't go and service my motorcycle. Then all the motorcycles I had, I don't service them because I had a guy, a real original gangster, old school guy who smoked while he had gasoline around him. He smoked a cigar. He looked like Sonny Barger from the Hells Angels.
Wearing oily rags.
Really oily rags. And he was the only guy that I knew for 25 years that could insult a customer and get away with it. I mean, he would go, Scott, that's a dirty bike you got there.
Yeah.
That's a piece of crap.
Yeah.
And I would tell the guy, Jimmy, this is my bike. I'm paying you. You piece of shit.
Yeah.
And you went back to him because you knew the work was
Good.
good.
Yeah.
And you took it. Now,
you knew he was being honest too.
Yeah.
He wasn't
Yeah.
hiding anything.
Yeah.
The point is, I went to a guy like that because it was convenient, and the price was right because he only worked on one bike at a time. You don't find guys
Yeah.
like that. So having said that, I had to then say, he's gone, he retired. Do I go back to Eddie's place? Or do I go to another place that's 5 miles, 8 miles away? They have a parking lot. I don't have to struggle with traffic. and then it comes down to convenience, and then you start playing, the fact like Eddie may have to just say, you know what, I may have to make that arrangement with somebody to drop me off, take me to the other place if she
I mean,
cannot come
at
to
this point,
church.
that's where I've had better service in New Jersey.
Yeah.
The
I've heard
cops
many guys
tell
go to
me,
Yeah,
Jersey.
but yeah. Well, I have two recommendations, and we'll see if this helps you. And I think the first is, the first recommendation, and well, observation, I would say, is as long as you're under warranty, maybe you can take it to different Harley dealerships, but we can assume you're bound to
yeah,
have to take it to a dealership, right? So you've got that option, and the reason why that's relevant is if you're not under warranty, you don't have to go to a Harley dealership. Going to a place like Carlos was describing, maybe with a less abrasive owner, like they're just going to charge you. They're going to do the work you ask them to do. They're going to hopefully tell you if there's
yeah,
anything else they think, but they're not going to try to upsell you on stuff because they don't care. They're not. They're not. It's a different financial model. More than likely, we'll say. They're going to give you a more honest take. We'll say less inflated. So you,
and a less embarrassing experience
yeah.
would be
So here's
great.
what I do. This may your mileage may vary, but when I am, I'm a knowledge worker and I'm not a mechanic by trade, but in this situation or others where I find myself unfamiliar and intimidated, what I try to do is I would say put next time you go in for service and there's a question about what it is, put it back on them and make them answer you in terms you understand. And what I say, this may sound funny, like I'm trying to be silly, and I'm not. What I would say to them is like, yesterday I was talking to my wife about wanting to get an open face helmet, and I said to my wife, on a scale of divorce to a few days in the doghouse, where are you on this? Right? I needed to understand. So what I would say to the person trying to charge me for tires is on a scale of I'm going to ride out of here and crash into a pole and I need to get them fixed soon and it's in your best interest to sell them to me. Where are we? Call them out and basically say, help me understand in terms I can understand what it is. And that would be the one thing I would say if you're talking, try to put the pressure on them to say, I need to understand what this is before I'm going to commit to it.
Yeah. And if you've ever read
also
Dale Carnegie's book, The How to Win Friends and Influence People, there's
Eddie,
a thing in there talking about asking for help is like a sociological thing. If somebody asks you for help, you feel obligated to try to help them.
Right.
So saying, help me understand this here, or dumb it down for me. I'm not really getting this, and I understand it's frustrating for you, but please help me understand.
Yeah, now, and if he sells you those tires, now he knows and you know, even if the guy says, you know what, like, but that's the person, he's got to make that decision and say, okay, now if I tell her she needs these tires, then I am now in on the con. I'm not just doing what I was told by my boss to upsell tires. I'm now just as guilty as everybody else. And that happens really quickly in people's heads without them even realizing it. And that's to Scott's point where they go like, you know what, you don't need these. You can wait 6 months or whatever.
Yeah, or my magic one, Jay, is, hey, if this was your brother's bike, what would you tell him to do with it?
Right.
Like put it back into their emotional.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things, Eddie, was, that dealership is under new ownership. That's two brothers that have the East Coast and the West Coast. The East Coast partnership owns 8 dealerships up and down the East Coast. So all the way from New Hampshire all the way down to Florida. So technically, if you saw a bike that was, putzing around, you saw something was in your price point in Florida, you can then look them up, and the concept would be to bring the bike up, and they would do it. So, having said that, if you want to go that route where you want to appeal to, because they are located, they are on the board, you can reach the individual partners, the brothers that you might consider that. Second thing is the lesson you learn, in future going forward, what to examine. And third, I just gave you the service manager's name, the guy that I've dealt with, good guy at Nassau, where the guy has spent more than enough time explaining in great detail, or he would actually answer me when I said, "Hey, I got a fault. I got a engine light that just came on. I'm getting this error code. What's the deal on this?" Well, Carlos, this is the blah, blah, blah. And he would take the time to explain to me. I wouldn't worry about it. That's all right. Don't worry about it. And I found that the whole, like, the system of going there, there. But again, that's not convenient.
Well,
that's half an hour away. In which, and they do have their new Express Lube 1 hour service, which might be something you might want to look at in going in the future. So
yeah,
I've said my spiel for those guys.
it's at least worth the try for the experience. And I think that we're Eddie. It sounds like it was when you described the sweating, that cold kind of sweat feeling. I know exactly what you're talking about, and that realizing when you're like, oh crap, I'm in something here I can't get out of now, and
cold sweat that runs down your armpit.
yeah, it's just terrible, and so hopefully this gives you a little bit of I do want something to work with, and I do want to say well, we're running up on time, so we're gonna wrap it up in a minute. Next week, I want to continue this conversation about maintenance. We are due to talk about bike tech, but I want to continue this conversation about the maintenance and the sort of the dealership experience, and we'll figure out how to work it into the next episode. I want to close with something nice and say that for my dealership, which Carlos is also, interestingly enough, one of like 7 or 8 in the Southwest, owned by a conglomerate of, I think, what they call like Nice Ride Group or something like that. And they seem to be people who ride, but it's one of those things like if you see a bike you like here and they have it at Death Valley Harley Davidson, you can get it, sent down or whatever.
Nice.
But I went in there gingerly yesterday. I have new saddlebags I bought from Viking, and I need to relocate my turn signals and my plate to mount them. And I went in gingerly to ask relocating the signals and the plate is a little bit over my mechanical, involves some drilling and some wiring, so I wanted them to do it. And I was like, I wasn't going to ask them to put the Viking bags on just to do the relocation. And I got like halfway through describing what I was doing, and the people behind the service desk were like, "Dude, just bring the bags in. We got it. It's all done. We'll order the part for you."
What?
And they've been good to me. Like I've had really great experiences.
Eddie, are you moving out to San
How far
Diego?
away
Is
are
that what
you?
you're saying?
Maybe it's not that far.
Yeah, and it's yeah and one of the it's not the service manager, but one of the lead service associates is a woman rider, and they do like videos and stuff. It's very so I met a few complaints about sales or whatever, but I can't really complain about the experience. Going there has been really really great so far. So all right, so I know we're run up against time. It's Sunday. Next week.
Jay, real quick.
Yeah,
Carlos,
please.
Maybe in the future we could talk about some things that are reasonable maintenance to do yourself. Because
yeah.
I was thinking about that too. What do you know how to do, and what should I know how to do?
When Eddie said maybe I'll replace the brake pads, my first thought was, ooh,
this seems important.
There's a lot of liability on that.
That I'm prospecting for is actually going to teach me by the end of the summer how to
Sweet.
do basic stuff.
Yeah, I would love. Let's pick that up. Like, where's the line for what you can do? Because that was actually one of the questions, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Scott. I punted on this turn signal thing because it involved drilling a hole and rewiring. When I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to let them do that.
Let me add to Eddie again. Eddie, you mentioned, and I'll close with this. You have options where, supposing Long Island City, you know what? Let me give somebody else. Bergen County has got good kudos about people that they treated really well. I've been in there. It seems like, Scott, now you're making me feel bad because now I've been in their lounge also, and they got. There's pictures of me probably at every of these.
Yeah, have you seen this man?
Just to put it in perspective, when I go to Lexus, they have all like the free soft drinks. I bring a backpack.
Yeah,
everything gets loaded up on the way out.
Anyway, let me go back to Eddie. Bergen County, good kudos for them. I like the people I was there. So, but again, you're crossing a bridge, paying a toll. Number 2.
I don't mind riding.
Well,
the other one
is a lot
that
cheaper
is
than a front tire, Carlos.
You might wanna consider. Have you ever approached New Rochelle? New Rock.
New Rock, yeah.
But New Rock, really good. What I like about the guy there is as I mentioned to you, the service manager there, great guy. He used to work at Long Island City, is there now.
Oh.
And you go in there and he actually literally with a great personality tries to help. So you might consider those guys in there, no hard sell. Plus, where do you find somebody who's willing to sew your patches for a nominal fee.
Oh wow.
24/7.
Because I've been
Those
using
guys.
rubber glue, and that glue is messy.
Oh no, you
No,
can't do. You got to watch. I have patch
Another
sewing
episode,
videos that I'll send you, Eddie. I figured out how to.
Okay.
I learned how to do it with a leather sewing awl. I've got
Well,
so.
show that there.
I will.
New Rock, and Belmore. Use that. That's my advice to you, young lady.
All right.
Take it away, Mr. J.
Guys, it's been fantastic. You reminded me of all these stories about the stealing donuts and bagels. Made me think of my dad used to bring a Ziploc bag on the golf course and get like the special seed they use to patch holes. I'd see him like out a tee box, like spooning it out. So there's something for everybody. But next week we'll talk more about the maintenance. I want to talk more. I'm going to be out in the East Coast in a few weeks, so I can't wait to ride with everybody. So I'm excited for that.
Nice.
And
Awesome.
yeah, so we've got
All
a
right,
lot of
Scott, let's take off.
yes.
Let's go, Scott.
And Eddie, I'll finish by saying I'm sorry you had a bad experience. You know, I've got a daughter, and if she decides to ride one day, I hope she isn't treated like shit at a dealership.
Heck
So,
yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry it happened, and you know, don't feel responsible for this. Let's just make sure that next time you have a better experience.
Here to that, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on this note, I want to say once again, thank you guys. I missed you guys the last few weeks. Thank you so much for coming out again. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And I'll leave you with this. I met a new neighbor yesterday who approached me and asked me for advice about buying a bike. And she's an older rider, first-time rider, just took her class. And I was able to point her right to our episode and, told her what to look at. So we might have another guest to come on sometime soon. So, Joe, if you're out there, good luck. And check out that episode on buying a bike.
Good luck.
All right,
Thank
cheers,
you.
everybody.
It's been so much fun today.
Woohoo!
Thank everybody.
Right side, shiny side up, everybody. Cheers.
Take care. Bye.
Later.
Yes. Bye, everybody.
Old in the way. How weird is that? Is that crazy? Am I crazy? Is everything crazy? So much packed in an hour. So much more I want to talk about. And everybody wants to talk. And I have to figure out how to triple each other. I don't want to be I want to have I want to be today's show. No, they're not going to speak about have this person's talking, and unless they ask you a question, you just shut up there and sit.